There we go. Okay. Good morning, my guy. I'm in a different place now. I'm reading down in my studio, which is my favorite place in the house. And so I thought I'd read from here today. Now, we have to start a new way of identifying where we're starting and then at the end where we're stopping. So, when we left off, he was talking about having met this, what was his name? Melvin Trumbolt, who seemed to get in trouble a lot at school and so on and so forth. He didn't want to like him or invite him to his party. But his mother insisted. And he came to find out that old Melvin, who decided to call himself Flush, because he had flushed all the toilets in the boys' bathroom, which backed everything up. So, now we're back at school again, and the point is, let's see. His mom wouldn't be too My mom wouldn't be too happy with me not inviting early to join a table at lunch or play ball after school. But my mom wasn't here to watch over me. Besides, I was the new kid this time, and people weren't exactly banging on my door until about 5 o'clock one morning, when someone was doing just that. Banging, loud and insistent. I was still coming out of a hard sleep when the pounding continued on the next door over and the next one. "Let's go, gentlemen! Crew call!" an adult voice boomed. Ugh. I poked my head out the door. It was Mr. Blaine, the math teacher. It was a school day, but no one said anything about a 5 a.m. math class. He was dressed in gray sweatpants and a hooded sweatshirt with the Morton Hill crest on the front and the word crew underneath. Was he getting us all out of bed to be the kitchen crew or the latrine crew? Just then, Sam Feeney poked his bleary-eyed face out of his room. "Hey, what's all the ruckus about, Mr. Blaine?" It's about rising to the challenge, Mr. Feeney. It's about discipline and strength. It's about working as a team. "Really?" Sam muttered. "'Cause my clock says it's about 5 a.m., which is about an hour and a half an hour and a half before my alarm's set to go off." He stretched and yawning said, "Which means I'm about to go back to bed." "Time waits for no man, Feeney. Suit up." Emerging from my dorm room in my own Morton Hill issued sweats, I finally clomped down the stairs, and I made it out of the building and was the last one to catch up with the other 8th grade boys on their walk down to the calm inlet called Wabanaki. It was a bay, Wabanaki Bay. By the time I reached the water, the boats were all full, with groups of boys of 2 and 4 boys in a boat. Those sleek vessels had names painted on the sides, like Torpedo and Jerry Runner and Spoiler. By the time I set foot on the swaying dock, the only boat left was a weather-beaten vessel named the Sweetie Pie. "All aboard, Mr. Baker." Mr. Blaine extended his hand with a flourish, as if the Sweetie Pie were the flagship of a magnificent fleet of rowing vessels, and not the sorry, saggy swamp bucket it appeared to be. "This is my boat?" I asked. "Yes, I know she looks a little bit rough around the edges, but she's yar," he said, before moving down the dock. "Yar?" I repeated. I stared at the boat with its 2 seats. My face must have screamed confusion. "Don't you know anything?" Robbie Dean said. "Your boat's a double, which means it's for 2 people, but you're the last one here, so you'll have to row it as a single." He took up the rowing position in his boat, which was sleeker and obviously designed for just 1 person. "But what does your name mean?" I asked. "Quick to maneuver. Easy." Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. "But what does yar mean?" I asked. "Quick to maneuver and easy to handle." "Quick to maneuver, easy to handle," I repeated. "Got it." "Now, remember, this isn't a race," said Mr. Blaine. "We're just trying to get our legs pumping. So let's get you out and see what we have to work with." One by one, the boats were pushed away from the dock. Most were 2-man boats. Robbie Dean and Sam shoved away from the dock in the Jerry Runner, while Preston Townsend occupied the only other single, the Spoiler. I watched as they glided through the water, straight as arrows, their bodies moving forward and backward, legs pushing, arms pulling, in one fluid motion. "Mr. Baker, let's see how you fare. You know how to row, don't you?" "Oh, sure," I said. "It can't be that hard." My arms and legs were strong from swimming and bike riding, even though I hadn't done much of either after everything with my mom. I eased myself aboard and tried to position myself in the seat, hoping to catch up with the other boats. "Oh, quit messing around, Baker," hollered Mr. Blaine. "Turn around and get moving." Turn around? I looked up, expecting Mr. Blaine to yank me out of the water and put me in the beginner's rowing class with the 6th graders. But he was studying his clipboard and seemed to mistake my bumbling for messing around, so I guess I had told him that I knew how to row, but I didn't think he'd believe me. Another boy rolled his eyes. "You don't face forward. See how they're rowing? You face backward." Backward? I turned around. This time, my feet found their place and I started rowing backward in a direction I couldn't see. Still, it was a big bay, nothing really to run into. I hunched forward as far as my body would reach and gave the oars a mighty heave. Mom always said I was as strong as an ox, and an ox had to be stronger than anything they had around here, like lobster and shrimp. "I'll be fine," I told myself. My heart began pounding, and for the first few strokes I felt the thrill of gliding through the water, until I realized I was veering off course. I tried pulling a little harder with the left oar and veered off course even more. Oh, God. Must be the right oar. I tugged and pulled. Yar, quick to maneuver. This boat isn't quick to do anything except go off in the wrong direction. Slowly, I veered back toward the center of the bay. Uh-oh. Too far the other way, and so it went. Too far this way, too far that way. I zigzagged back and forth across the bay. As I made a wide turn to head back, I saw that most of the boats had already arrived at the dock. Well, I could still make a strong finish. There's no shame in coming in last as long as your head's up and your tail's not between your legs. 3 guesses who said that. I had the dock in sight, as much as it could be, as I strained to look over my left shoulder. The other boats were already out of the water. What was maybe a 20-minute row for the other boys was taking me twice as long. The rowers stood on the deck, watching me make an approach. My shoulders and back ached, and my legs shook violently each time they crunched forward and pushed backwards. Even my hands were clenching so tight on the oars that I didn't think I'd be able to pry them off. But I would finish, and it would be over. I was already rehearsing my finishing line. It took me a while to figure her out, but she sure is yar. Finally, I pulled the sweetie pie along the dock with a scraping noise that sounded like a cat on the midnight prowl. Preston, Sam, Robbie Dean, and the others all watched with pained grimaces on their faces, waiting for the boat and the noise to come to a stop. I stood up and felt the evil sweetie pie pitch left, then right, and before I could say Jack Tar, I was upended in Wabanaki Bay. There were a few chuckles and shaking of heads as the boys lifted the remaining boats onto their shoulders and headed to the boathouse. I took my time getting out of the water, as I was not eager to catch up. Mr. Blaine extended his hand and gave me a lift. "It's all right, Baker. I guess you're not as experienced at rowing as you let on. We'll work on it for the next time." Next time. That's just what Coach Baynard had said after the incident in the pool. That's what Mom had said after my next survival outing. How many next times would there be? "Here, help me get her out of the water," said Mr. Blaine. I lifted the boat, but wasn't sure how much I helped. "I'm sure one of the boys will help you carry her to the boathouse. I've got a faculty meeting in a few minutes." He patted me on the back. "You'll get the hang of it next time. See you in math class, Baker." And Mr. Blaine walked briskly up the dock. "Yes, sir," I said, glad to be left alone. I stood dripping and shaking like one of our old barn cats, glaring at the source of my contempt. The sweetie pie. I gave her a swift kick and toppled her onto her craggy side. "Yep, she sure is yar. If by yar you mean wobbly, easily tipped, and likely to throw you in the drink." Okay. So this was our first session, and so that we're marking everything, we started on page 39, and we ended on page 44. Okay, that should help us keep track. Okay, bud, that's it. I'll be on to the next one. All right, dear, I love you. Bye.